everybody, happy Monday. It's 12:26 and I am quarantine cooking. And I had a yen for some food that's old time, old school that my grandma Rose, my mom's mom, used to cook all the time. And so I thought I'd share a couple recipes. Now, a cut of meat that she used often, and I think people used it all the time back in the day, more than they do now, is round steak, cube steak. And it used to be a very economical meat. It is kind of cubed, and I've already got mine in the pan, so I can't really. It's called cube steak. I don't want to disturb my little because I want to get a brown on it. But if you look really close, it's cube steak. I have not even a pound here. I think one steak was 46 ounces and the other one's 38 ounces. So what I did was I do wash my meat. Some people don't, other people do. I rinse it really good usually over a strainer with a coffee filter in it or something, or a double paper towel. So what my grandma Rose used to do is she would use cube steak to make Swiss steak, chicken fried steak, and often she would just sup it in with a flank steak or a roast beef she had around the house, and that would be in our chili. Or she would sup it in for like a beef stroganoff. She would have some hamburger, some ground hamburger, and she would sup in some cubed meat, and then add her mushrooms, her sour cream, and everything, make her roux. And that really made it nice. So today I'm doing an old style version that I don't know if anybody in our family, but the reason I'm doing this is there's so many people in our family that on my mom's side that really only remember my grandmother for her holiday cooking. They knew her to do the turkeys and the stuffing and the stuffed rigatonis and the stuffed shells and the lasagna and the cookies and the stuffing and everything. They knew her to do those things. Every one of my cousins will say, Grandma's cooking, Grandma's cookies, Grandma's this or that, Grandma's. But what they didn't get to see is the meals she made every day. And even when she went to stay at their house, very often she did not cook these things. So this is stuff she would make at the home she lived at, which was with myself, my brother, and my mother. And all but 4 years of my life, she was there. So she would sup in cube steak, round steak for everything. And I want to say also, she would make a chicken fried steak with the cube steak. And then she would also actually use chicken to do that. She also made a beef stroganoff with ground beef, like I said. Later in years, she started to use ground turkey and the cube steak. But sometimes she would make what she called her blondie stroganoff, which is she would take pieces of chicken and bread the chicken, just like I'm doing here. She would bread the chicken, and that would be in her pan, browned up. And then she'd make a roux. She'd throw her mushrooms in with chicken broth, or chicken. It was usually chicken bouillon cube, and water, and serve that over noodles. So just really cool things she used to do. But I remember her Swiss steak. So everybody makes their Swiss steak differently. Traditionally in the South, you're going to use tomatoes, green peppers, onions, red peppers, yellow peppers. Some people throw in mushroom. And you're going to use a little bit of vegetable or canola oil and just dredge your meat. So I wash my meat, and then that gives it a little bit of water. I dredge it really good in a pan of all-purpose flour I season it up with a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper, a little bit of onion powder, and I don't put anything else in it. We don't need this to cook. We just need it to brown on the sides. So I have a yellow pepper and a red pepper, and I have, traditionally, Swiss steak is not going to have celery and onion in it, or celery and carrot. But my Grandma Rose would make like a Swiss steak stew. She would want to use up her carrots and her celery because she wanted to get everything in there and not waste anything. So she would throw in a couple carrots and a little bit of celery when she did the stew. If she just did plain Swiss steak, it would be peppers, onions, sometimes mushrooms, if she had them, and a cube steak with tomato sauce. And then she might throw in a beef bouillon cube. And this is all I want. See how I'm turning it around right now? I just want it browned. See how the blood is coming out of it here? Smells good already. I just want to flip all these little babies over. And if they're not browning up really good, I don't really want to overcrowd my pan. I do want that, what's happening right there, that little flavor browning on the bottom of my pan. I want it. And once you get these browned up, usually this kind of meat, you're going to go for 160, for a temperature of 160 in the center, and no pink. But I am just looking, I'm not flipping that very good. Flip for me. There we go. I'm just looking for it to brown on both sides. And sometimes I would watch her make this and she would just brown the edges and then start throwing her vegetables in. Sometimes she would take the meat out, which is what I'm going to do. After she browns both sides, she would take the meat out and add a little butter and a little more olive oil, or usually it was Crisco with her. So I have a little bit of olive oil and canola left over. I started with about 1/3 of a cup, but I only used 1/4 of that for this. It's only barely a pound. So just going to let that keep browning. And when it browns up, I'm going to put all my meat into here, this little pan, and let it just sit on the side. It's an old frying pan without a handle. And it comes in handy for this kind of stuff, dredging stations and everything else. And as this is going here, I'm going to take all my meat out and then add a little bit of my oil back, which is right here. This is what I didn't use. Little vegetable canola with a drop of olive oil in my vegetables as they're going. I'll see how much I need. I'm going to use up this one. My bertolli. Try not to get into that one. And what I sup in, I make a lot of chicken soups and a lot of chicken broths, but when I don't want to fill my freezer with a lot of chicken broths, I buy these sodium-free Urbox chicken things. And now I have a beef one. So I am going to flavor it with, once I put my tomatoes in there, after I sear my vegetables, I'm going to put my no salt tomatoes, diced tomatoes, 14.5 can. And then I'm going to take my meat out and sear my vegetables with a little more oil. And let the meat flavoring be right in. You know, that's got a nice little crust on it. That's what we want. I don't want to cook it all the way, otherwise it'll get too tough. That one's a little too brown. Just playing with my temperature here. Typically I wouldn't be playing with it that much. That's ready to go right now. So I'll meet you right back. I'm going to put all my meat here I'm going to put a little bit more oil here, throw my vegetables in and get them seared up. I might add a little butter to it. I might not. I might add a drop of extra virgin olive oil. We'll see. But that's what I want right there, that bubbly flavor. Be right back. Hello, so I'm back. So I'm going to save my flour because I might use that for my roux. I might whisk it in, some of it, with some water. I might make a little slurry. I have a few potatoes. I haven't decided if I'm going to make a smashed potato and use the gravy from that, or if I'm going to cut up some of my potatoes and throw it into the stew. I don't know yet, but I'm really not feeling like I want to make rice. What I really, really want is a little bit of black-eyed peas and mashed potatoes. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I took the rest of my oil, which I have a little bit there, which is a mix of just a tablespoon and a half of canola, a tablespoon and a half of vegetable, and a couple drops. I used the last drops of my olive oil. So I'm mixing my oils. And all these vegetables are just going to go in. And what I have here is onions, carrots, celery, red bell sweet pepper, yellow bell sweet pepper, and portobello mushrooms. I put everything into a stew chop. And it looks like a crazy amount of vegetables, but it's fine. I'll turn my heat up on it and let it start cooking. And I'm just going to get everything swirled around in there. And what I did was I took all the crust to the meat. And I took it out and I kind of piled it up right there. Normally I would deglaze the pan with something, but because I want to give these vegetables a nice toss, I've got my celery leaves in there, big portobello mushrooms, everything big. Big carrot, big onion. I got about an onion and a half of a Videla onion, and a whole Spanish onion. And I just kind of chopped everything big because I want this to be a big stew. I'm already in autumn, you guys. I'm already there. I'm already comfort food and autumn and yeah. Freeze, start cooking, start freezing. Because I think we are going to go into lockdown. I think we are. So what I'm going to season my vegetables up with is a little bit of thyme. Not a lot. If I had fresh, it would be better, but about a layer on the top. That's good. And some Italian seasoning, which has just about everything in it, and some thyme, but it also has majorium, which is nice. And parsley and oregano, I can smell it already. I want a little bit more of that with my vegetables. It's got oregano, thyme, rosemary, majorium, parsley, and I want a little extra basil for my tomatoes. So a little basil, a little sweet basil. And I'm not doing a lot of tomatoes. Normally for this amount of vegetable, I would do like a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes, but I'm going to just stick with a light amount of tomatoes. Right? And then I'm seasoning my vegetables with just a little garlic, about 3.5 swirls. And at the end, this is going to cook for about a good 2 hours on low. All these vegetables are going to get mixed in. If I do decide to throw my potatoes in, I'll throw some rosemary in there. I have some fresh parsley and some dry parsley. But I also have some scallions here I want to get rid of, so some of them are going in. And that's the whole idea of quarantine cooking, is just use what you have in the house. I'm going to turn up the heat and put the lid on this. My meat's going over here. tomatoes are going to go in with a little more water and some, probably 2 cups. I'm probably going to do 2 packets of beef. There's no sodium in it. No idea what's in it, but it'll be fine. I'm going to give it a crack and a half of this at the end. And that's going to be my recipe. I'll show you how it's coming along as I add things to it. I'll be right back. So I wanted to just quickly say I already got into my pan and I grabbed about 3 tablespoons of flour. So I can tell for the amount of vegetables I have, I'm going to want about 1.5 tablespoons of butter in this. I'm going to cook my flour right with my vegetables. This is all just like basically a one pot. You're searing your meat in the pot, just setting it aside. And if my burner would cooperate today, I just want to get everything warmed and in the meat flavor from that meat. Okay. And now I'm going to grab some of my top mush stuff that I took off and throw it in. There's your meat flavor. That, I mean, just what you normally would to glaze on your pan. I'm doing this a little totally deconstructed and weird, but it works every time. So I'm not gonna. Yep, I'm just gonna throw that right in there. All your little crumbles that, right before you deglaze your pan. I just use a little warm water. Right? And then keep some of it whole like that, because it's going to give it a lot of flavor. More fat. Now, sometimes my mom's mom would cook up, especially cube steak. We always called it cube steak, or we called it cube steak, and she called it cube steak too. But she would take her dredging station after she was done with anything she cooked, whether it was pork chops, whatever she had to dredge, chicken, pork chops, cube steaks, particularly cube steaks. If she was doing an egg flour dredge or something with breadcrumbs and egg, she would add a little milk. And at the end, she would make little patties out of her dredging station: flour, breadcrumb, egg, milk, and she would throw a little bit of Parmesan cheese in it and fry those up, and she'd have a whole plate of those. And sometimes the kids, especially in the family, loved those more. We just called them her meatless air burgers, and they were delicious. You wanted one of those because it was all the flavor. It's all the flavor from her breading and everything. It was just fried breading, egg and breadcrumbs, cheese, milk, yummers. I never wanted the meat. I wanted the air things. I just call them air burgers. I want to use so I want to get the rest of. I have some stuck on there I didn't want to waste. There's one thing I learned from my grandma Rose was she wasted nothing. She used everything. And I think a lot of us grew up that way, using everything, making it work. Okay, so see how this is just kind of glistening with the flour? It's just a basic stew at this point. No biggie. Okay. I'm going to pop my lid on it and let it go a few more minutes. And then I'm going to put the meat on top of it, tomatoes on top of that, and my beef packets in a little water, and let it cook with a lid on it for however long it takes. 1.5, 2 hours, 2 hours on low. That's what I'm going to do. And that's how easy this recipe is, you guys. That's how easy it is. Okay, so it's been a good 5 to 7 minutes. And all I'm trying to do is make sure it's just like that. Everything's glistening. The flour's cooked out of it. I still have some oil left in my pan, but not too much. And this is going to be nice and thick. And now I'm going to pour my meat back on top of my vegetables, just like that. And I'm going to grab every little bit of it. And spread it out really nice, just like this. And on top. And then my tomatoes are going to go right on top of it. With about 2.5 cups of water. I want to cover my meat and my vegetables. So this is 2 cans. I'm going to use the can. Just like all our grandmas do. And I just want to cover it. So I'm going to do a little more. And we'll see. It's good. So I did about 2 cans. Almost 2 cans of water. And I'm going to keep my eye on the water level. And I'm going to quickly cut up my 2 little bouillon packets here with no sodium or box. They're going in. Okay. So I would say this is a really good find. I like the chicken ones to sup in. I know a lot of people use the base chicken soup or the chicken bases and the beef bases. Those can get really salty. And my enemy is sodium. And I think a lot of people's enemy is sodium. It's such a balance. It's in everything. That when we can use no sodium or low sodium, it helps. So because it's beef, it's going to add to the beef flavor. We're just going to mix that in like that. Now, this will get thick. And it will cook down. I want to. You find your low on your stove, your pot on there, just like that. And find your low. I may have to adjust that. Like I'm on medium, right now. This burner, everybody has burner issues, gas or electric. Things go in the direction they want to go. So adjust. You don't want it to be boiling. You don't want a rapid boil. You want a simmering, like you're in a sauna. Just a nice, every 3 seconds, bubble, 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 bubble. That's all you want to do. If you boil this, your meat will be so tough, you won't be happy. But if you just think like that and wait for it to come to a boil and then adjust it, it'll be fine. And you can even put your lid a little like this. Let steam come out every now and again. And then, so you can adjust the boil that way. And at the end, I'm going to cut some of my scallions into it because I want that taste in there. And I'm also going to drop some fresh parsley in it again. And I may have to thicken it a little more. And if I do, I already took the flour that was left in my pan and some water. Got it in a clean jar here. And I'm just going to shake, shake, shake and make a slurry out of this. And just add a little bit as needed. That's it. Although, I may pop just a little bit of, at the end, Worcestershire or soy sauce in it. I don't know yet. So these are the things that I saw my grandmother always playing with that, I don't know, maybe the rest of the family didn't see, but I did see. She always had soy sauce in the house. She always had Worcestershire. She always had a little A1 sauce, and she would use that too and stuff it into anything with tomato. Anything she wanted to thicken and make a little bit more substance. Tomato paste, tomatoes, little beef bouillon. Sometimes she had Sometimes her roux wouldn't come out really dark, and she would use a little something called kitchen bouquet, which is just adds color to your roux. So that's going to be a really nice stew once I find my boil. And then over here, I have my potatoes. I'm going to quarter down into little pieces and scrub the skin really good. And I want to cook them up to be I'm going to keep some of the skins on, so it's like a smashed potato. And I've decided I am going to go with a smashed mashed kind of potato. And that's what I will serve it over, but I'm not going to make too much of it. And I don't know, I might throw a little bit of black-eyed peas in with my smashed potatoes, because I'm weird that way, and I love black-eyed peas. Gotta have fun in the kitchen, you guys. Gotta have fun. Alright, so I'll be back and show it to you when it's done. Okay, so what you're looking for here is this. Ouch. A little bubble. And when your tomatoes start to turn, instead of red, but turn everything orange, you know they're starting to cook. It's the same thing with sauce. When you start out with the red tomatoes, you're going to be cooking it until it gets orange. So, 111 again. That's so funny. So my vegetables are breaking down really nice, becoming really tender. There's my beef. And just make sure with a little wooden spoon or spatula or something that you don't have any little pieces of anything that could be burning on the bottom, because that will wreck your whole stew. So I like the color of this as it's developing. But like I said, I might throw a little tiny bit of Worcestershire or soy sauce at the end. I don't know. So this is going to get about an hour and a half. It's 1:12 now. I found my simmer at about medium there, but you know, it's going to be different for everyone. And I'm just going to get some potatoes cooked up to smash down. And then I'm going to plate this up and have a bowl of it and enjoy it. Hope you're having a nice day. I'll be back later when it's done. So I'm back, and while I have my potatoes beginning to cook over there, and I just took a little bit of the skin off of my potatoes, and I used a combination of russet and baking potato and a little bit of Yukon Gold. So I left some of the skin on. Not going to hurt as long as you scrub it really good. So my favorite part of soup making, sauce making, stew making, stoop, is the skimming. I find it very meditative, even if I know you need a little fat in there, so I'm not going to be crazy about it. But as it's keeping this nice, gentle boil, this nice simmer, which finally I found, I put the lid on it at all, it starts boiling away. The mushrooms in it are going to darken it up, the portobello, and the white snow caps are going to give it a lot of depth. I'm rethinking, I'm not sure about my scallions yet. I'm just thinking it's not going to complement this very well. We'll see. But I guess you can't be afraid to try new flavors. Now, my mom's mom didn't always have mushrooms, so that didn't always go. Her celery leaves always went into everything. With her parsley. All the ends to all the vegetables, of course, went in any stew, anything she made. And I'm not saying that everything's got to be like our grandmas, because sometimes our grandmas didn't cook very healthy. Let's face it, they didn't. I don't make a lot of the holiday stuff that my grandmother made, because it was very rich. It was delicious. It was very rich food, full of ricotta cheese and parmesan and mozzarella, and mixed meat flavors. I just want to get the oil out at this point. So I want this to be a really nice stew. And really my seasoning has done its job by now, but I want to see a little fleck of it in there. So I'm just going over to where the oil spills are on the side. And I think what I've decided to do, and don't, we can't be afraid to mix and match our food. It's all going in the same place. I'm going to add a little bit of black-eyed peas to my mashed potato because I want the most healthy bean you can have in a legume is black-eyed pea. And it's creamy, and it's good fiber, it's good protein, and it's good folate, and just everything that lowers your cholesterol and is good and works on belly fat and all the stuff is black-eyed peas. Black-eyed peas are the healthiest thing you can eat. So I'm going to smash down my potatoes when they're done and spoon in some black-eyed peas that are already soaked and made in advance. And that's going to be that. Okay, so I've skimmed about this much. So my excess oil is out of there. And I'm just going to keep looking at it over the next hour and a half to see if I need to add a little flour to it and water or a little water. I don't think I'm going to need it at all. And I'm going to taste it. Even though it seems raw now, I'm going to taste. Let it cool first. It looks so pretty. And honestly, the seasoning's right on point. And it's going to be thick enough. It really is. So that's going to go back on. And I'm going to keep adding probably water to it. What I might do is add just a pinch of sugar to that at the end and start. I might even add it a little sooner. And a little cinnamon. And a pixie dusting of nutmeg. Because that's something, if anybody wants to know in the family, always brown sugar, sugar, cinnamon, or nutmeg went in everything. There wasn't one thing she cooked, I don't think, on a stove that didn't have the nutmeg, the brown sugar, or the sugar. Or if she didn't have nutmeg, she mixed her brown sugar and her sugar. Or, let's put it this way, if she didn't have nutmeg, she mixed brown sugar and granulated sugar. If she didn't have brown sugar, she mixed cinnamon and sugar into everything. But most often, she had nutmeg. That's that. So I'm going to get my black-eyed peas going and let that just keep cooking. Just at that. Just have it just a little, it's not really boiling. It's just, I'm going to keep it at a simmer. And I'll plate this up later and show it to you.